All across the globe, there are structures so enormous and incredibly accurate that modern engineers find them hard to comprehend. Well before the pyramids emerged, whole urban areas were sculpted into hillsides. Sanctuaries oriented to celestial bodies with remarkable precision. And massive rock slabs, each hundreds of tons heavy, were mysteriously elevated, formed, and positioned without any machinery. From Turkey's concealed settlements to Indonesia's overlooked stepped mounds, from Egypt's arid sands to Cambodia's dense forests, the same baffling puzzle resonates across eras. How did early constructors shift entire hillsides of rock? And why do their techniques remain out of our grasp? This evening, we explore the planet's most enigmatic ancient colossal edifices, works so sophisticated that they overhaul all we believed about our history. Karahantepe. On a breezy highland in southeastern Turkey, a group of rock columns emerges from the desolate ground. They remain quiet and partially covered, their aged exteriors inscribed with odd emblems and creature depictions. This is Karahantepe, a location so old that it precedes the pyramids by more than 7,000 years. Indeed, Karahantepe originates from about 10,000 to 9,500 BCE, rendering it simultaneous with or marginally earlier than the renowned Göbekli Tepe. Frequently termed Göbekli Tepe's companion site, Karahantepe has just lately undergone digging. However, it is already transforming our view of ancient times. Here, during an epoch prior to farming or urban centers, as we understand, Stone Age individuals embarked on a vast construction endeavor that experts can scarcely account for. Karahantepe was identified in 1997 on a distant summit in Turkey's Şanlıurfa region. For years, it stayed largely undisturbed, eclipsed by Göbekli Tepe, 46 kilometers distant, which had amazed the globe with its 11,000-year-old engraved shrines. But from 2019 onward, archaeologists initiated thorough unearthings at Karahantepe, and their discoveries were astounding. Right under the dirt lay numerous T-shaped rock columns remarkably akin to those at Göbekli Tepe. Actually, at least 266 columns have been recorded to date, many still erect in the spots where ancient creators set them. These standing stones, some reaching 3 to 4 meters in height, create elliptical and round enclosures hewn into the foundation rock. Detailed bas-relief engravings decorate several of the columns. One column features the winding form of a serpent. Others show vague human visages rising from the rock. Distributed around are pieces of sculptures, including a full-scale humanoid form lately revealed. A stone human upper body exceeding 2 meters in height with precisely sculpted ribs, arms, and a V-shaped adornment. Close by, excavators discovered an engraved stone bird of prey and additional animal representations. These creations indicate that the inhabitants of Karahantepe 12,000 years past had already perfected carving and rock sculpting with a level of skill that astonishes the intellect. What renders Karahantepe so puzzling is not merely its antiquity, but the suggestion that a structured, work-demanding initiative flourished here at the very beginning of human society. Traditional theory long maintained that only following the invention of farming and establishment in hamlets could people assemble the labor and supplies to erect grand monuments. Yet Karahantepe and its counterpart Göbekli Tepe overturn that story. These edifices trace back to the pre-pottery Neolithic period when people in this area were shifting from wandering foragers to initial fixed communities. It seems that even prior to agriculture's dominance, individuals congregated at places like Karahantepe to raise enormous holy compounds, the columns positioned in evidently intentional designs and frequently directed toward particular orientations implying a deliberate layout and potentially ritualistic function. There is also proof that Karahantepe could have been a lasting or semi-lasting habitation. Scholars have labeled it potentially the first recognized human settlement. If accurate, this implies a stable group resided here circa 10,000 BCE, participating in extensive building, while mankind was only just emerging from the glacial period. Envision the setting during its prime. Several oval areas bordered by upright rocks, may be topped with timber or reed coverings. At the heart of one enclosure in Karahantepe, diggers located a bedrock-hewn base encircled by diverging columns as though a shrine or focal platform for ceremonies. The etchings of ferocious beings, snakes, untamed beasts suggest mystical or spiritual imagery. We might envision flames glowing among the columns at twilight, projecting dancing shades on the engravings as an assembly of individuals enacted rites to venerate unknown powers. What motivated these individuals, without metal implements or wheels, to such a tremendous undertaking? How did they sculpt and convey these limestone giants using only Stone Age methods? Those inquiries stay unresolved, sparking conjecture that verges on legend. Did they possess approaches now vanished from history? Maybe utilizing a primitive grasp of rock handling or a communal framework able to coordinate hundreds of laborers across generations. Standard archaeology suggests that pure human collaboration and cleverness, fueled by belief or ceremonial zeal, might have accomplished it. Yet observing the exactness of the masonry and the magnitude of the initiative, one inevitably experiences wonder. Each column was extracted from nearby bedrock and refined, its summit shaped into a T-form. The constructors aligned and situated them in bases cut from solid stone. A massive task with solely flint or volcanic glass tools. One of Karahantepe's oddest enigmas is that, similar to Göbekli Tepe, it was intentionally interred by its originators. Ages ago, after possibly centuries of utilization, the residents packed the enclosures with soil, debris, and rock, entombing their columns like preserved artifacts. This deed safeguarded the engravings in remarkable state, a purposeful entombment as if concluding a segment of the past. But for what reason? Was it an old ceremonial decommissioning of a holy location or a reaction to some calamity or evolving faith? We lack knowledge. The intentional overlay guaranteed that Karahantepe stayed concealed for thousands of years, dormant under a knoll until contemporary tools uncovered it once more. Merely around 5% of the location has been unearthed thus far, implying numerous additional secrets probably linger subterranean. Terrain assessments indicate Karahantepe's mound is dotted with irregularities, possibly extra edifices, standing stones, or even dwellings pending revelation. Investigators have pinpointed at least 12 comparable elevated sites in this vicinity, collectively termed the Tas Tepler or stone mounds, indicating this zone was a thriving hub of a profoundly ancient society. Karahantepe might be merely one element of a far broader enigma linking various pre-Neolithic holy places. The ramifications are immense. Karahantepe and its peers compel us to re-evaluate the chronology of intricate communities. Here were individuals orchestrating large building ventures before widespread cultivation at a period when humans were presumed to dwell in basic shelters in minor groups. Either those individuals were much more progressed in societal arrangement than presumed, or as certain bolder theorists propose, we are viewing the remnants of an even prior obscured phase of society. While conventional researchers warn against leaping to the vanished society inference, the model change is indisputable. Human ancient history was not a consistent straight advancement, but replete with abrupt surges of creativity. Karahantepe serves as evidence of one such surge. Its very presence urges archaeologists to clarify how and why foragers would unite to construct a monumental ceremonial hub of rock. What religious or communal influences drove them? Did the building maybe align with the initial emergence of farming as a ceremonial assembly spot for dispersed clans to exchange concepts and assets? Some theorize that these holy places truly aided ignite the growth of cultivation, that shared ceremonies required reliable nourishment. Provisions unintentionally promoting planting. It's a fascinating idea that faith and ceremonial assemblies could have preceded hamlets and agriculture followed, inverting the classic narrative of society. Presently, Karahantepe contains many more queries than resolutions. Each fresh excavation period unveils another stratum. In 2023, beside the huge human sculpture clutching its midsection, diggers exposed finely engraved heads with lifelike precision and further serpent patterns, suggesting a vibrant emblematic realm. The creators of Karahantepe bequeathed no identified script, so we might never learn their tongue or legends. But their masonry communicates through the centuries. Positioned on that dry highland, one can trace a finger over the etched depiction of a twisted snake and sense a link to inventive intellects 10,000 years departed. Science can examine the implement traces and age the ash from old fire pits. But it finds it difficult to account for the drive behind this location. What represented Karahantepe to its makers? A shrine compound for adoring deities or forebear phantoms. A local assembly center for periodic banquets and ceremonies. A venue for celestial viewing maybe? Did they observe the star's coordinate above the columns at equinoxes or solstices? We don't know yet if the columns possess astronomical coordinations as observed in certain subsequent megalithic locations, but the prospect is enticing. One fact is definite. Karahantepe emphasizes that society's origins extend further than we envisioned. As one reporter observed, Göbekli Tepe was once dismissed as an isolated oddity, an unaccountable exception. Now, Karahantepe demonstrates it was not solitary. There could be numerous more such episodes of ancient history pending unearthing. Paradigm-altering findings concealed beneath knolls. Karahantepe has scarcely started to relinquish its enigmas. In forthcoming years, archaeologists will probably disclose additional edifices, maybe even signs of residences or graves that could inform us about the individuals themselves. Each fresh discovery will assist assemble the intent of this primordial holy place. Until that time, guests to the location, which first welcomed the public in 2022, stroll among rocks that antedate Stonehenge by 6,000 years, admiring that here in this serene part of Turkey, our predecessors etched their perception of the world in rock. Karahantepe poses the largest query of all. What else remains out there interred and awaiting that might overhaul history? As the dust of 10 millennia resettles onto the engraved columns of Karahantepe, we travel southward and ahead in time. Our subsequent enigma resides not on a windy mound, but concealed in soaring sandstone precipices. Thousands of years following the Neolithic constructors of Karahantepe, another antique society would embark on a marvel of achievement, sculpting a complete metropolis from stone in the Jordanian wasteland. Petra. Deep within the Jordanian wasteland, past a slender twisting ravine, the terrain abruptly opens to disclose an extraordinary view. A whole metropolis hewn into vertical rock walls shining pink and red under the sun. This is Petra, the fabled rose-red metropolis half as ancient as time. Approaching via the Sik, a natural sandstone chasm that hides Petra, one appears before the famous front of Al-Khazna, the treasury, carved from a cliff with exquisite detail. It's a scene directly from an adventure movie. In fact, Petra notably appeared in an Indiana Jones film. Yet, the actuality of its creation is even more astonishing. Over 2,000 years past, the Nabatean people actually molded a capital from the solid rock, forming majestic shrines, graves, dwellings, and even an auditorium, all blended into the gorge walls. The grand fronts, some exceeding 30 meters in height, were not assembled from rock pieces, but incised straight into sandstone bluffs. How an ancient nomadic desert civilization attained this accomplishment with only chisels and basic implements stays one of Petra's lasting enigmas. Petra's tale commences around the 4th century BCE or sooner when the Nabateans, an Arab group, founded it as their headquarters. Strategically located at the intersection of Arabian, Egyptian, and Mediterranean commerce paths, Petra prospered from trade by the initial centuries BCE/CE. It flourished into a diverse city of possibly 20,000 residents, complete with verdant gardens, pillared avenues, and lively bazaars. Yet, unlike Rome or Athens, Petra lacked extensive rock quarries or woodlands for wood in proximity. Its designers adopted the striking method of transforming the surroundings itself into structures. They converted bluffs into edifices. The most renowned instance is the Treasury Al-Khazna with its Hellenic-inspired pillars and figures meticulously incised from top to bottom in the rock surface. Local tales once claimed it was a pharaoh's treasure vault, thus the name, although it was probably a royal grave or shrine. Standing in front of the treasury, one instantly ponders, how did the constructors produce such a finely intricate 40-meter-high front without traditional scaffolding? Cleverly, the Nabateans seem to have incised from the summit downward. Archaeologists infer that they chiseled a sequence of massive stair-step platforms into the bluff, forming supports and stages for laborers to position themselves as they sculpted the upper parts. Basically, the mountain served as its own support structure. Laborers would carve a step, position on it, and sculpt the rock overhead, then carve a lower step and continue. This approach allowed them to adorn the highest areas with accuracy and security. Proof of these carving platforms is still observable high above certain Petra fronts. It was an initial type of job safety and engineering merged. By incising large steps in the mountain, the Nabateans guaranteed no one needed to dangle dangerously from cords while chiseling the elaborate features of triangles and tops. As they progressed downward, they would subsequently refine the platforms or retain them as decoration. The outcome, edifices like the treasury or the monastery ad Dare that appear impossibly elegant as if constructed by titans or deities straight from the rock. Beyond the celebrated monuments, Petra's bluffs are riddled with hundreds of caverns and incisions, graves of various dimensions, feast halls, shrines to forgotten gods, even a theater with benches incised in curving rows from the gorge's rim. It's as if the whole city was molded by a supreme artisan on a colossal scale. The reason-defying feature is not only the expertise of specific carvings, but the synchronization of city planning. Envision designing a metropolis where every edifice is actually one unbroken segment of the mountain. There were no allowances for mistakes. One chisel error and a complete front could be spoiled. Yet Petra's designers attained nearly flawless balance and coordination in structures dispersed across diverse bluffs, all without contemporary measuring devices. The monastery, for example, perches high over the primary city on a mountainside. Its immense entry and ornamentation matching the treasuries, reachable by ascending 800 rock-incised steps. Its role stays discussed. Was it really a monastic location in subsequent eras or initially a splendid Nabatean shrine? But its creation is as enigmatic as any. While incising Petra was an architectural wonder, the city's genuine brilliance may reside in what is less visibly apparent: an advanced water control system that permitted a capital to prosper in a dry valley. The adjacent area receives scant precipitation. Yet the Nabateans designed Petra to gather and utilize every droplet of water. They constructed a system of reservoirs, waterways, and conduits that competed with Roman setups. Along the 6 walls, one can still observe grooves incised at hip level, which once transported water into the city from a constant spring and from impounded rainfall. They even possessed segments of buried clay piping in certain zones. An extraordinary labor to secure a dependable provision. During sudden floods, the same grooves served as flood prevention, protecting Petra's edifices. In truth, chroniclers observed that when infrequent rains arrived, the water was meticulously collected in vast underground reservoirs, sealed to avoid vaporization and pollution. The Nabateans concealed these reservoirs below the ground, shielding their vital water from the desert heat and possible assailants, and then allocated it through gravity-supplied waterways to water terraced gardens and groves. This piping enabled Petra to maintain farming. Proof indicates the city featured lush verdant areas and even a bathing pool, a genuine haven. The water setup was so expertly conceived that it not only supported existence but also conserved the very edifices of Petra. Drainage grooves redirected downpours that would otherwise wear away the fronts. When we discuss enigmas science can't entirely clarify. Petra's water engineering is a key illustration of antique innovation that contemporary specialists still examine with respect. Petra's ascent is well chronicled historically, but its decline and rediscovery bear an aura of enigma. By approximately the 7th century CE, Petra had been mostly deserted. Shifts in commerce routes and a sequence of earthquakes, especially a ruinous one in 363 CE, resulted in its slow descent into oblivion. Sand and time obscured its once thriving streets. To the local Bedouin, the incised palaces turned into abodes for phantoms or jinn. They protected Petra's secret effectively, cautious of outsiders. The West recognized Petra solely as a myth, a legendary valley of wealth concealed somewhere in Transjordan. It wasn't until 1812 that Swiss adventurer Johann Ludwig Burckhardt, disguising himself as a Bedouin, deceived a local escort into guiding him to the forgotten city. Burckhardt's amazement upon beholding Petra's splendor reignited worldwide curiosity. Since then, archaeologists have charted and dug, but many queries persist. For instance, what precisely were Petra's most decorative buildings utilized for? Consider the treasury. Despite being Petra's iconic image, its interior is a comparatively modest room. Was it truly a grave for a monarch, perhaps the Nabatean king Aretas IV, or a shrine for the goddess Isis, as some icons suggest? And why does the treasury's front display elements of Hellenistic Greek architecture and Egyptian style combined? Petra's art is an eclectic blend, a mirror of the Nabateans' broad trade links. They incorporated impacts from Greece, Rome, Egypt, and Mesopotamia, yet created a distinctive approach. This international trait of Petra might explain its enchanting, unearthly atmosphere. It's a city at the crossroads of antique societies, literally incised from the earth. One cannot discuss Petra without referencing the local legends that heighten its allure. Bedouin folklore maintained that the treasury's urn, the stone container atop the front, held the gold of Pharaoh or riches of outlaws. Bullet scars on it today confirm that optimistic shooters once fired at it, hoping to shatter it and pour out wealth. They only succeeded in nicking the stone. It's solid rock, naturally. Other legends mention djinn blocks, the mysterious cubic monuments near Petra's entry, as dwellings of spirits. The Nabateans themselves left writings, but not sufficient to definitively explain the role of every edifice. A particularly eerie site is the so-called high place of sacrifice atop a cliff, an open-air altar with channels presumably for blood, indicating ritual animal offerings. It overlooks the city as if the Nabateans conducted sacred rites under the open sky to bless Petra below. Was human sacrifice ever practiced? No direct proof of that, but the name and arrangement fuel speculation. From an engineering viewpoint, Petra defies reason in that it transformed a mountain range into a habitable, refined city with minimal natural resources. Contemporary architects still admire how the Nabateans planned the city's arrangement. They had to evaluate which bluffs were appropriate for incising large interiors. Some rock straight up are softer. There are instances of partially incised caves abandoned, perhaps due to collapse. The placement of major graves and shrines suggests urban planning as they align along ceremonial paths and view lines. For example, the main pillared street of Petra is at the valley bottom with freestanding buildings in later Roman style. But the skyline of Petra is dominated by the incised monuments higher up. It's as if the city has two levels, the worldly and the monumental, merging natural scenery and human craftsmanship seamlessly. Petra's greatest enigma might simply be the skill of its craftsmanship. Try to envision the process. Workers clinging to bluffs, hammering away outline after outline for years, even decades, to create a single front. Recent studies estimate that incising the entire city would have involved an army of stonemasons and laborers and taken many decades of steady work. Yet, we have scant records of those efforts. No depictions of Petra's construction, no texts explaining how to incise a bluff. The knowledge was likely passed master to apprentice orally. The result is a legacy in stone that looks almost supernatural. As one stands in Petra's inner sick at dusk, watching the fading light set the treasury aflame in gold and rose hues, it feels as if the cliffs themselves are alive. Perhaps the Nabateans intended exactly that. Their city was a grand affirmation that even in the harshest desert, human imagination could flourish and literally become one with nature. Today, Petra remains a source of fascination, not just for tourists, but for scientists. Geologists study the weathering patterns to determine how Petra's monuments have survived earthquakes and erosion. The sandstone is fragile, but Petra's positioning and perhaps Nabatean reinforcement helped it endure. Hydrologists examine the water system to glean lessons in sustainable water use in arid lands. And archaeologists continue to excavate peripheral areas, finding evidence of suburban life in caves and foothills around the core city. Every find adds a brushstroke to the picture, but doesn't dull Petra's mystique. In 2016, using satellite imagery, researchers discovered an enormous, previously unnoticed structure, a vast rectangular platform just south of the city center, buried under centuries of sand. What was it for? A ceremonial plaza. Petra still holds surprises. Ultimately, Petra's very existence poses a question. Why incise a city instead of building it? Some suggest it was for defense. Incised structures are more earthquake-resistant and easier to protect. Others point to symbolism. By incising their graves and shrines into immovable bluffs, the Nabateans may have been expressing a desire for eternity, melding their identity with the everlasting mountains and their gods. In Nabatean religion, certain peaks and rocks were sacred. What could be more sacred than making the whole city a shrine incised from holy rock? Petra's Nabatean name was Rakmu, meaning variegated or multicolored, perhaps referring to the rainbow hues of sandstone layers. But the Greek name we use, Petra, simply means rock. How fitting for a city that is both of the rock and in the rock. As the sun sets and the Rose City's bluffs deepen to purple, one can imagine the ancient voices echoing off the canyon walls. Petra leaves us with a sense of wonder and a humbling realization that past peoples often underestimated were capable of mind-boggling artistry and engineering. The question, how did they do that, lingers around every corner in Petra. 2,000 years later, we are still striving to fully understand the methods and motives behind this rock-cut masterpiece, making Petra not just a wonder of the world, but also a mystery that continues to captivate scientists and storytellers alike. From Petra's incised canyons of Jordan, we journey back north to the mountains of Anatolia. But this next mystery takes us even higher to a lonely peak where an ancient king built a man-made mountain of his own. Here, colossal stone gods gaze over the landscape and a royal tomb lies hidden somewhere under the rubble. The question is, can we find it? Mount Nemrut. Atop a remote summit in southeastern Turkey, Mount Nemrut presents a surreal and haunting scene. Over 2,000 meters above sea level, the rocky peak is crowned by a vast artificial tumulus. Essentially a man-made mountain of crushed stone flanked by the broken remains of giant statues. These statues are the likenesses of gods and kings. Each originally 10 meters 33 feet tall, now mostly headless and scattered. Their enormous stone heads, some 2 meters high, lie on the ground, staring silently at the sky. This is the mountaintop sanctuary of King Antiochus I of Commagene. Built in the 1st century BCE, often dubbed the 8th wonder of the ancient world, Mount Nemrut, Nemrut Dağ in Turkish, stands as one of antiquity's most ambitious and enigmatic construction projects. It is a place of extremes, extreme altitude, extreme scale, and extreme mystery. Why would a king build a shrine of gods in his own tomb on such a remote pinnacle? And how did he manage to create a 50-meter-high pyramid of loose rock before the age of machinery? To this day, the tomb of King Antiochus has never been found, hidden somewhere within that man-made mountain. Mount Nemrut challenges scientists and adventurers alike with its secrets. The story begins around 62 BCE when Antiochus I, ruler of the small Greco-Persian kingdom of Commagene, decided to leave an eternal mark of glory. Commagene was a buffer state between the Roman Republic and the Parthian Empire, a crossroads of west and east. Antiochus, a man of grand vision and perhaps grand ego, practiced a fusion of Persian and Greek culture. He traced his lineage to both Alexander the Great and Darius of Persia. To honor this mixed heritage and to deify himself, Antiochus commissioned the construction of a sanctuary tomb complex like no other on the summit of Mount Nemrut. Workers flattened the mountaintop and erected terraces on the east, west, and north sides. On the east and west terraces, they raised a line of colossal seated statues, each about 8 to 9 meters tall when intact on thrones. These limestone colossi represented a pantheon that mixed Greek and Persian deities. Zeus Oromastes, a syncretism of Zeus and Ahura Mazda, Apollo Mithras Helios, a combination of Greek and Persian sun gods. Heracles Artagnouzares, the goddess Commagene, a personification of the kingdom. And last but not least, Antiochus himself in divine form. Yes, the king placed a giant statue of himself among the gods, wearing Persian attire. To each side stood guardian statues of a lion and an eagle symbolizing power on earth and sky. On the back of the thrones, Antiochus inscribed a long autobiographical inscription, effectively a dedication explaining the site's purpose and the rituals to be performed. Between these statues and the sheer drop of the mountain, Antiochus then piled up a truly colossal tumulus, a conical mound of crushed rock 50 meters high and 150 meters in diameter. Originally, it may have been even taller, up to 70+ meters. This mound is entirely artificial, consisting of small angular stones like a giant gravel heap. Underneath that pile, legend and inference say, lies the tomb of King Antiochus I, sealed away for eternity. Building this mound was a feat of engineering and labor. Workers had to quarry rock, likely from the mountain itself, break it into countless fist-sized pieces, and carry it up to form the heap. Why stones? Some experts think it was intentional. The loose gravel makes the mound extremely difficult to excavate or remove without it constantly refilling the hole. A clever way to protect the tomb from robbers or intruders. Indeed, despite many attempts over the last century, the tomb chamber has not been reached. Even modern efforts with ground-penetrating radar have only offered tantalizing hints. In 2012, geophysical scans detected a possible pyramid-shaped cavity about 15 meters below the summit containing what might be a rectangular object the size of a sarcophagus. This suggests the tomb is indeed there intact, but Turkish authorities have not allowed invasive digging, wanting to preserve Nemrut's integrity and UNESCO World Heritage status. Thus, Antiochus' resting place remains officially unopened. An untouched royal tomb from antiquity, akin to a mountaintop pyramid still keeping its secrets. The logistics of constructing Nemrut's summit complex pushed the limits of what we thought a small ancient kingdom could do. Antiochus had to terrace a mountaintop, meaning large-scale excavation and leveling at 7,000 feet altitude. He then placed the massive statues. Archaeologists determined these statues were not carved in one piece. They were made of several stone blocks each, carved and then fit together like giant Legos. For example, a seated god might consist of a lower body block, an upper torso block, and the head as another block. They used shear keys and gravity to hold the blocks without mortar. Even so, the sheer weight, tens of tons per statue, raises questions. How were they hauled up there? Likely via ramps and human-animal power. But on steep mountain paths, it would have been enormously challenging. The stone for the statues is local, a sort of crumbly limestone, which ironically hasn't weathered well over the centuries, likely aided by natural earthquakes or deliberate iconoclasm. The statues were decapitated. Their bodies remained seated, but the heads toppled off and rolled short distances. The cause of the head's removal is debated. Some signs of intentional defacement exist. The noses of the heads are often broken, which could be from deliberate smashing, perhaps by iconoclasts or anti-idolatry zealots in early Christian or later times. On the other hand, the region is seismically active. A quake could have sent the precariously balanced heads tumbling. It's plausible both played a role. Maybe initial damage by humans followed by natural erosion and quakes finished the job. Thus, the heads now rest on the ground, staring eerily outward as if awaiting restoration. One of Nemrut's intriguing aspects is its astronomical alignments and symbolism. Antiochus' sanctuary wasn't just a random vanity project. It was carefully planned for cosmic significance. The eastern terrace was where dawn ceremonies likely took place. And indeed, it's noted that on July 23, the anniversary of Antiochus' ascension to the throne, the sun rises directly in line with the eastern gods, bathing them in first light. Likewise, the western terrace was aligned for sunset. Around December 23, possibly Antiochus' birthday or another significant date, the sun sets over the heads of the western gods, perhaps symbolically celebrating the king's life. Whether by coincidence or design, these alignments tie Nemrut to the solar cycle in a way that must have impressed ancient visitors. Imagine climbing the mountain in darkness to watch the giant stone deities emerge from shadow with the sunrise. Additionally, a famous carved relief found at Nemrut is the lion horoscope, a bas-relief of a lion on the west terrace decorated with celestial symbols. On its body are carved a crescent moon and 3 stars believed to represent Jupiter, Mercury, and Mars in a specific alignment. Scholars deduce this alignment corresponds to an actual night sky configuration on July 7, 62 BCE, thought to be an auspicious date. Perhaps the date construction began or Antiochus' coronation. This essentially makes Nemrut a kind of temple of the cosmos. Antiochus declared the site a hierothesion, a sacred tomb temple where he would be worshipped eternally with the gods. He saw himself as bridging the mortal and divine realms. The very placement on a high peak was likely meant to be closer to the heavens. Indeed, to this day, stargazers who hike Nemrut at night can attest that the stars feel startlingly close and bright up there. Despite Antiochus' detailed inscriptions which describe the ceremonies to be held, the banquet offerings for special days, etc., mysteries endure at Mount Nemrut. For one, the tomb chamber's exact location. The inscriptions don't map it out. They just allude to Antiochus' desire to rest in peace with the gods. Explorers in the 20th century tunneled into the mound, but found nothing before their tunnels collapsed. Modern scans hint at a cavity, but the Turkish authorities hesitate to disturb what could be a pristine royal tomb. So, we wait, tantalized by the possibility that behind those giant heads lies an untouched hoard. Perhaps Antiochus' coffin, possibly treasure or texts that might have been buried with him. Could it be the only royal tomb of that era still intact? It fires the imagination like a mountain equivalent of Tutankhamun's tomb waiting to be revealed until someone finds a non-invasive way to verify the chamber's contents or the policy changes. That question mark will persist. Another mystery, the end of Mount Nemrut's use. After Antiochus' death, within a few decades, Commagene was absorbed by Rome. Did the rituals on Nemrut continue? There's evidence that the site was maintained at least into the 1st century CE, but at some point it was abandoned and fell to ruin. By the time modern rediscovery came in 1881, a German engineer named Karl Sester stumbled upon it while surveying for roads. Local populations had long forgotten its origin, weaving folklore that the colossal heads were petrified remains of Noah's Ark or other legends. The abandonment might have been due to iconoclasm, Christian or later Islamic cultures disapproving of the idolatry and smashing the heads, or simply neglect and difficulty of access. Today, the weather at Nemrut is harsh. Snowy winters, intense sun in summer, and the statues have eroded significantly. One mystery to scientists is how to preserve these statues from further decay. Attempts have been made to treat the stone with consolidants. Some cracks have been stabilized with modern chemicals like nanolime to slow down weathering. Even so, the freeze-thaw cycles at that altitude mercilessly chip away at noses and relief details. There's an ongoing debate whether to take the heads indoors to a museum for protection or leave them in situ for the authentic experience. For now, they remain on the mountain, keeping their silent vigil. Mount Nemrut also sparks the imagination with what-if questions. What if the tomb is opened and found richly stocked? Would it change our understanding of Commogene's art or religion? Or conversely, what if it's empty? Could Antiochus have been buried elsewhere despite all this effort? Some have speculated, probably fancifully, that maybe the king's body was never interred here and Nemrut was more a cenotaph or ceremonial site. Without direct evidence, it's hard to say. Another point of wonder, was Nemrut unique? We know of no other project quite like it from antiquity. A fusion of monument and mausoleum on a mountaintop. It's as if Antiochus tried to emulate the Egyptian pyramids, creating a mountain tomb and Greek temple building, statues of gods, in one go, arguably succeeding in creating a new wonder of the world. In recent years, archaeologists have surveyed other mountains in Commogene for similar sites and found none on this scale, reinforcing that Nemrut was singular. The king's passionate personal project. Standing on Nemrut at sunrise, as many travelers do, one is struck by the palpable sense of communion with the ancient world. The stone heads catch the first light. Eagles and lions that have lost their bodies still symbolically guard the throne of a long-dead king. The view is spectacular. On clear mornings, you can see the Euphrates River glinting in the distance and hills rolling into Syria. It's easy to see why Antiochus chose this spot. It literally gave him a god's eye view of his realm. In those moments, one can almost feel Antiochus' presence. Perhaps that was his intent, to be remembered each dawn and dusk as the sun performs a cosmic ritual in his honor. The mountain keeps his secrets well. For over 2 millennia, no one has disturbed his slumber. And so, the mystery of Mount Nemrut endures. Part mausoleum, part celestial observatory, part propaganda statement of a king's divine aspirations. Science can explain much of how it was built. Through archaeology, we know the statues were assembled, the terraces cut. But why here? Why this grandiose design is explained only by Antiochus's own grandiloquent and self-aggrandizing inscriptions. Even those leave gaps in understanding the deeper spiritual meaning the site held for those who built it. In summary, Mount Nemrut is a case where ancient engineering and art reach heights literally and figuratively that seem to border on the absurd, yet it's real. You can touch the carved beards of the fallen heads, trace the lines of an inscription that reads like a king's proud manifesto, and scramble over the loose stones of the tumulus, knowing full well that somewhere beneath your feet could lie a golden sarcophagus undisturbed by time. Few places combine human ambition and mystery as Nemrut does. It stands as a colossal riddle on a mountaintop, a king's attempt to join the gods, leaving behind a puzzle for the ages. Will we ever uncover its final secret? Perhaps one day, with careful work, the hidden tomb will be revealed, and Antiochus will speak again through whatever is found beside him. Until then, the stone gods of Mount Nemrut keep their watch, and we are left to marvel at the audacity of a king who moved a mountain to ensure he would never be forgotten. We descend from the heights of Mount Nemrut and travel back in time to the Bronze Age to another fortified sanctuary of stone. But this one was a bustling capital city. In central Turkey, the ruins of Hattusa hold cyclopean walls and lion-carved gates from a mighty empire that mysteriously vanished. Our next stop explores the Hittite stronghold and a monolith within it that still puzzles archaeologists. Hattusa's megalithic gate. On a high plateau in the heart of Anatolia lie the ruins of Hattusa, the ancient capital of the Hittite Empire. Over 3,300 years ago, this city was a thriving metropolis, seat of one of the late Bronze Age's great powers alongside Egypt, Assyria, and Mycenae. Today, its once mighty halls are silent stone foundations. But parts of Hattusa still inspire awe and bafflement. Chief among these are its cyclopean fortress walls and the famous Lion Gate. As you approach Hattusa's remains, you encounter stretches of massive perimeter walls made of enormous irregular stones fitted tightly without mortar. They evoke comparisons to the so-called Cyclopean walls of Mycenae. Indeed, Cyclopean means so big only a mythical giant could have built them. These walls in places stand 8 to 10 meters thick at the base and originally towered perhaps 6 to 8 meters high, enclosing a city of over 120 hectares. Passing through the southern ramparts is the Lion Gate, a grand stone portal flanked by two hulking limestone sculptures of lions, their mouths open in a perpetual roar. Though weathered by millennia, the lions still project power and guardianship. What's mysterious is not that the Hittites had city walls. Many cultures did, but the scale and technique of Hattusa's defenses and the precise purpose of certain features. Why did they use such gigantic stones in some sections when smaller stones would do? How did they maneuver blocks weighing dozens of tons into place with Bronze Age technology? And within the city lies an even stranger puzzle. A large polished greenish monolith of unknown origin. Often called the Green Stone of Hattusa, sitting in the ruins of a temple with no record of what it was for. These are the enduring mysteries of Hattusa. A city whose fall around 1200 BCE remains part of the great unsolved puzzle of the Bronze Age collapse. To visualize Hattusa in its prime circa 14th to 13th century BCE, imagine a sprawling city built on terraces of a rocky hillside with a grand palace and temples on the upper acropolis and residential areas below. The Hittites, a formidable Anatolian people, constructed an elaborate fortification system around their capital. The walls were built in chord segments, the lower portions made of large polygonal stones, some weighing several tons, and the upper portions likely of mud brick. What stands out is the lower wall masonry. In places, the blocks are truly enormous, comparable to the stones at Mycenae or even older sites like Sacsayhuaman in Peru. They are fitted in an interlocking puzzle, sometimes with surprising precision and complexity. The effect even today is impressive. One can run a hand over these weathered boulders and feel the smooth join where Hittite masons somehow ground them to fit snugly. Why go to such trouble? One reason might be structural strength. Large stones provide a stable base for high walls. Another might be psychological, to overawe anyone approaching with the sheer might of the construction. These were walls meant to intimidate, to say behold the power of Hutti. The Lion Gate on the southwest side is a prime example of Hittite stone masonry and art. It's a tunnel-like gate made of megalithic side jambs and a huge lintel stone above. That lintel, now broken, would have weighed many tons. Flanking the outside entrance, carved in high relief from the stone posts, are two lions and nearly round the full sculptures. Their foreparts emerge from the stone as if lunging out. The lions' heads are now a bit eroded, their manes only faintly visible, but one can still see their snarling teeth and the general outline. The purpose of the lion sculptures was likely protective. Lions as guardians that ward off evil. Interestingly, their style is a blend of artistic stylization and naturalism typical of Hittite art. The fact they carved them from the structural stones of the gate itself, not set up as separate statues, suggests careful planning. These gate monoliths had to be quarried with extra stone for the eventual lion shape, then transported and erected, then carved in place. The logistical sequence invites questions. Did they transport partially carved blocks or carve fully once in position? Considering lions project outward, they probably roughed out the shape at the quarry, then did final detailing after installation. Hattusa also had a second monumental gate known as the King's Gate, adorned with a relief of a warrior god, once thought to be the king, hence the name, but likely a god or hero. Like the Lion Gate, it used massive stones and had a detailed sculpture. In this case, a figure wearing a pointy hat and carrying an axe carved on the inner door jamb. These gates highlight the Hittites' flair for combining utility defense with artistic and religious symbolism. Anyone entering Hattusa would literally pass by these stone sentinels, symbolic protectors of the sacred city. Inside the city, much has been excavated. Foundations of grand temples, the largest being the temple of the storm god in the lower city, storerooms that once held uniform clay tablets, Hattusa's archives where the famous Treaty of Kadesh with Pharaoh Ramses II was found, and residential quarters. But amidst these ruins, one object stands peculiarly alone. The mysterious green stone. This is a block or slab of smooth translucent greenish material, possibly nephrite jade or chlorite, measuring roughly a cubic meter in size. It sits today near the center of what's called the Great Temple Complex. The stone is not local to Hattusa. It would have been imported from possibly hundreds of kilometers away. Polished to a shine, it clearly was important. Yet, its original purpose is unknown. Archaeologists found it where it lies with no inscription or context left to explain it. Some theorize it might have been the base of a cult statue. Maybe a sacred pedestal on which a deity's idol stood. Others suggest it could have been a sort of offering table or even a symbolic representation. Green being associated with vegetation or fertility. Hard to say. The locals today have nicknamed it the wishing stone, believing touching it brings luck. To scientists, it remains a complete mystery, an out-of-place monolith in an otherwise well-understood temple layout. If it was a pedestal, where is the statue that sat on it? Nothing of equal material or uniqueness was found nearby. The Hittites usually describe their major cult objects in texts, but no text refers to a big green stone. This suggests it might have been taken as spoil or gift from elsewhere, maybe acquired from another kingdom as tribute or war booty and placed ceremonially in the temple. Without more evidence, the green stone story eludes us. Now, consider the broader mystery of Hattusa's construction and collapse. Building those cyclopean walls and gates around such a huge perimeter was a staggering endeavor for the 13th century BCE. The Hittite Empire had resources. They controlled much of Anatolia and northern Syria with tribute flowing in. But even so, the coordination required reflects a highly organized state. The stone for the walls was likely quarried in the vicinity. Experiments show that with sufficient manpower and wooden sledges, such stones can be moved. The Egyptians and others did it. However, one curious aspect is that unlike Egyptian pyramids or Inca walls, Hattusa's masonry quality varies. Some stretches are rougher, some incredibly well fitted. It suggests different crews or phases. Might the Hittites have built hastily at times, perhaps after a siege they repaired sections quickly with smaller stones and more deliberately at others? It's possible. The Lion Gate area showcases some of the best megalithic work. One giant block adjacent to the gate is estimated to weigh over 40 tons. In 2005, as an experimental archaeology test, a team attempted to replicate moving a large Hittite-style stone. They found it arduous but feasible with enough rollers and manpower on level ground. But up inclines, that's trickier. The Hittites may have built earthen ramps to drag stones into place for the upper courses, just like how modern reconstructions imagined the pyramids. Over time, these construction ramps would have been removed or eroded away. The idea of using Cyclopean style might have also been influenced by older Anatolian cities or even by seeing sites abroad. Interestingly, the Mycenaeans in Greece used lion imagery and Cyclopean walls around the same time, 13th century BCE. A parallel often noted. Did the Mycenaeans and Hittites learn from each other or a common source? There was contact. They knew of each other as evidenced by Hittite records referring to a land called Ahioa, likely Mycenaean Greeks. Perhaps massive fortifications were an arms race of prestige and defense in that volatile age. And then around circa 1200 BCE, Hattusa fell. The city was violently destroyed. Burnt layers and arrowheads attest to it. The mighty walls were breached. The once roaring Lion Gate lions saw their city plundered and then went silent for ages. The cause was part of the Bronze Age collapse, an event that saw most Eastern Mediterranean civilizations, Mycenae, Ugarit, the New Kingdom of Egypt weakened, etc. crumble. Who destroyed Hattusa? Some blame the so-called Sea Peoples, mysterious invaders who ravaged cities around the Mediterranean. Others suggest rebellions or rival tribes taking advantage of a weakened Hittite state. The Hittite royal line disappears from history. Their capital is abandoned and eventually forgotten. This collapse is itself one of history's great puzzles. And Hattusa is a piece of that puzzle. Archaeologically, we see that certain valuable items like inscriptions, treasures were removed or smashed, possibly by the Hittites themselves in a controlled evacuation or by the conquerors. We might never know the exact scenario, a sudden conquest or a gradual desertion due to famine and threat. For centuries, Hattusa lay unknown to the outside world until it was rediscovered in the 19th century and then excavated by German archaeologists in the early 20th century. They were astonished to find cuneiform tablets and the remains of palace storerooms. The very correspondence of Hittite kings, including treaties and law codes. Deciphered by linguists, these tablets reintroduced the Hittites to history. Until then, they were only vaguely known from the Old Testament references. Through texts, we know a fair deal about Hittite culture, religion, politics. Yet, certain physical remains like the architecture still hold enigmas. One such enigma is Hattusa's underground passage. Near the south side of the city's fortifications is a sloping tunnel called Podrun Tunnel built under the walls. A stone-vaulted secret passage that exits outside the walls. It's amazingly well preserved. A corbelled vault roof of fitted stone still intact after 33 centuries. It likely served as a sallyport for troops to sneak out or launch counterattacks. But how did the Hittites manage to construct a stable vault tunnel under a massive wall without it collapsing? The engineering know-how required is impressive. They arranged stone slabs in gradual overlap to form an arch-like corridor that could bear the weight above. Walking through it today, one can feel like in a bunker from a much later era. It's another reminder that ancients had more advanced engineering than they are often given credit for. The Lion Gate itself, aside from its artistic and defensive role, also carries an unsolved detail. Inside the gate, on one of the door jamb stones, there is a carved silhouette of a sitting lion, almost like graffiti or a relief smoothed down, as if an earlier carving was started or a later one etched. Some archaeologists think this could have been a place where people perhaps in post-Hittite times carved into the stone for magical or memorial purposes. Sort of like how visitors scratch names on monuments today. It's minor, but it shows that even after the city's fall, the impressive gates might have still been revered or noted by folks passing by. What about the purpose of the Lion Gate itself? Symbolically, the Hittites were big on symbolism. Lions often represented kingship, pride, protection. Placing lions at the gate could invoke the protection of the sacred animals of the goddess Kubaba or the storm god. It also visually parallels the Lion Gate of Mycenae in Greece, built circa 1250 BCE, which has two lionesses in relief above it. It's tempting to think of some intercultural meme of lion gates spreading among late Bronze Age elites, but it could also be coincidence or independent development. Lions are a common symbol. Still, both Hattusa and Mycenae's gates were massive and likely meant to overawe. One cannot leave Hattusa without pondering the fate of its people. Unlike Pompeii or Troy, we lack a clear destruction layer full of bodies. Presumably, survivors fled. Where did they go? Some may have migrated south, eventually blending into what became Neo-Hittite city-states in Iron Age Syria. The knowledge of building cyclopean walls might have been lost for a time, which is also puzzling. The Iron Age around 900 BCE sites in the area don't immediately use the same techniques at the same scale. It's as if the collapse caused a significant regression in architectural ambition or capability. The rediscovery of how to build large stone fortifications had to be relearned later by others. This pattern suggests that Hattusa's secrets, be it construction techniques or the significance of the green stone, may have truly vanished with the fall of the empire, leaving us to reverse engineer and guess. Today, Hattusa is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Reconstruction efforts have partially rebuilt a segment of the wall near the Lion Gate to give a sense of scale, though some archaeologists disagree with heavy reconstructions. But seeing that slice of wall rise again helps one appreciate how formidable the city once looked. The original lion sculptures are left in situ. One could imagine attempting to remove them to a museum, but they are quite big. Casts were made for display elsewhere. As visitors stand at the Lion Gate as ancient envoys or soldiers once did, they often remark on the silence and isolation of the ruins, now contrasting with what must have been a bustling capital. The The wind blowing through the stones almost whispers of the past. If those lions could talk, what stories would they tell? Perhaps how the great King Suppiluliuma or Muwatalli II passed through with chariots. Or how messengers from Pharaoh came to negotiate peace at that very spot. Science has explained some of Hattusa's mysteries. We know roughly how the walls were built thanks to archaeology. We know what happened from the texts, but other aspects remain speculative. The exact method the Hittites used to lift multi-ton blocks to higher courses. Was it earth ramps only or wooden cranes? No crane remains obviously, but they might have had windlass devices or lever systems. We lack pictorial documentation from them on construction. So engineers today sometimes scratch their heads on the practical details and the greenstone's origin. Chemical tests could potentially pinpoint its quarry. Some suggest Central Anatolia. Others say maybe even as far as Central Asia or Egypt if it's true jade. If we could locate that, it might tell how far trade or diplomacy brought such an object. Then there's the enigma of Hattusa's sudden disappearance from memory. Other civilizations like Egypt and Babylon had continuous legacies or were referenced by successors, but the Hittites were basically forgotten in classical literature. It wasn't until modern archaeology that we realized this major empire had existed. The Lion Gate, half buried, might have been seen by local villagers over centuries. But they had no context for it. They possibly thought some giants or early race built it. In fact, the term Cyclopean expresses exactly that. The Greeks believed Cyclopes built Mycenae's walls as human effort seemed implausible. Perhaps locals in Anatolia had similar folklore about Hattusa's walls. In some Hattusa's megalithic marvels, the Lion Gate and giant walls stand as a testament to human ingenuity in deep antiquity. They also remind us how fragile civilization can be. A city so powerful to build on that scale could fall and be lost. The mysteries of who built the Lion Gate, we know broadly, Hittites, but not the master architects' names, and why that green stone sits in the temple are emblematic of archaeology. You find amazing things, but they don't come with complete explanations. Science can describe the stones, date the context, but the intent and meaning often elude capture. Each visitor to Hattusa might gaze upon the weathered lion and wonder if it's silently keeping the secrets of its people. The lion's mouth is open, almost as if it's about to speak. Yet, it never does. The Hittite Empire roared and then was silenced, leaving behind great stone puzzles for us to ponder. And ponder we do. We study every chip and crack, but some answers may have crumbled away with the ages. Hattusa invites us to piece together the past like a giant jigsaw. One megalith at a time, knowing full well a few pieces, like that enigmatic green altar, might always be missing. Hagar Kim and Najdra on the island of Malta. Perched on cliffs overlooking the blue Mediterranean are two remarkable structures that few realize are among the oldest freestanding stone buildings on Earth. These are the temples of Hagar Kim and Najdra, built between 3600 and 2500 BCE. Which means when the Great Pyramid of Giza was being built, these Maltese temples were already over 1,000 years old. Constructed by Malta's mysterious prehistoric inhabitants, Hagar Kim, meaning standing stones in Maltese, and Najdra are masterpieces of megalithic architecture featuring massive limestone blocks, some weighing over 20 tons, fashioned into elegant chambers, doorways, and altars. Even more intriguing, these temples are carefully aligned with the movements of the sun. At sunrise on the summer solstice, sunlight shoots through a particular hole or doorway, illuminating a stone slab within. During the equinoxes, the sun's rays align with other features. In effect, these structures function as solar calendars or observatories, much like Newgrange and Stonehenge. Yet here they are, fully fledged buildings with roofs and decorative carvings. Science marvels at how a Neolithic culture with no metal tools or will achieve such precision and monumentality. The mysteries abound. Who built them? And for what exact purpose? Why did this sophisticated temple-building culture vanish around 2500 BCE? Leaving no written records? And how did they move such gigantic stones into place using only ropes, wooden rollers or balls, and human muscle? When you walk into Hagar Kim's main temple, there are multiple structures, including a main and smaller temples. You step through a grand entrance made of uprights and lintels. The uprights are megaliths in the truest sense. One of them is about 5 meters tall and weighs an estimated 20 tons. It's mind-boggling to imagine dozens of people hauling this stone uphill from a quarry, which has been identified about 500 meters away, using only sheer manpower and possibly wooden rollers or sledges. Yet they did repeatedly to form not just one temple but a complex of them over centuries. The ground plan of these Maltese temples is distinctive. They have a cloverleaf or trefoil layout, basically a series of semicircular chambers often called apses branching off from a central corridor. This gives them an organic, almost womb-like feel. Many scholars believe these were goddess temples. A fertility cult might have been central, as suggested by the discovery of the famous fat lady figurines, ample-bodied female statues in Maltese temples. Indeed, one such figurine from Hagar Kim known as the Venus of Malta or Sleeping Lady. Though the Sleeping Lady actually comes from the hypogeum, another site implies a focus on fertility, death, and rebirth. Rituals likely took place in the apses, possibly involving animal sacrifices on stone altars. Some altars and carved libation holes have been found. Now the astronomical alignments at Hagar Kim on Midsummer's Day, summer solstice. As the sun rises over the sea, a beam of light passes through a small elliptical hole cut in an apse wall and projects on a particular stone slab in the interior, glowing in a precise spot. It's like a light show engineered in stone. On the winter solstice sunrise, the sunlight illuminates the edge of a large altar stone in another chamber. Meanwhile, at Najdra, which is just a short walk downhill from Hagar Kim, the temple's main doorway is oriented so that at equinox, spring and autumn, the rising sun's rays light up the central passage directly. At summer solstice, the sun rises in alignment with the left side of the doorway, and at winter solstice with the right side. In fact, Najdra's lower temple, there are two at Najdra, and upper and lower, is considered one of the most astronomically aligned structures of Maltese temples. Its orientation engaging all four major solar events, both solstices and equinoxes. This indicates the temple builders had a firm grasp of the solar year and incorporated it into their sacred architecture. Why? Perhaps to mark times for agricultural or ritual cycles, or to dramatize the moments of the year which might have mythological significance, like the triumph of light over darkness and vice versa. So precise are these alignments that one archaeologist exclaimed it's an accurate solar-lunar calendar encoded in stone. It certainly must have odd participants in rituals. Picture standing in the dim inner temple before dawn on equinox awaiting the first light. When it shoots through the doorway and lights the central axis, it could have been seen as the deity's presence or blessing. To Neolithic people who may not have had writing, this play of light in architecture was likely a form of storytelling and connecting with cosmic order. The engineering prowess at Hagar Kim and Najdra is also a bit of a mystery. Without metal chisels, they used flint or harder stone tools to pound and abrade the limestone. Many temple stones have a series of holes along their edges. It's thought these were rope holes for levering and moving, or possibly part of how they split blocks from bedrock by inserting wooden wedges and wetting them to expand and crack the stone, a known ancient technique. At Najdra, some outer wall blocks have beautifully finished convex surfaces. This is not rush-out work, but skilled masonry. One may ask, how did they lift a lintel that weighs 3 or 4 tons atop two uprights to make a trilithon doorway? They might have built gradual earthen ramps, inching the stone up with levers, then removing the fill, similar to Stonehenge theories. We have no records of their methods. So, experimental archaeology has tried replicating with small teams and found it slow but achievable with enough manpower and basic machines, rollers, sledges, inclines. The cultural context of these temple builders remains shadowy. We label them the Temple period of Maltese prehistory circa 3600 to 2500 BCE. They likely descended from Neolithic farmers who arrived on Malta around 5000 BCE from Sicily. Over millennia, isolated on Malta, they developed a unique tradition of building ever more complex and large ceremonial structures. Gantija on the island of Gozo in Malta is the oldest, circa 3600 BCE. And got the name because local legend claimed giants built it. Gantija literally means giant's tower. Indeed, the largest stones at Gantija weigh around 50 tons and are 5.5 meters long. The locals couldn't imagine humans moving them, hence giants. Hagar Kim and Najdra, slightly later, used somewhat smaller but still huge stones. the consistent local folklore attributing them to giants or a giantess. Sansuna, who ate honey and beans and carried stones on her head as per myth, tells us that even into recent centuries people were perplexed by these antiquities. One of the mysteries is the abrupt end of this temple building culture after 2500 BCE. No more temples were built, and evidence suggests the island's population drastically declined or even went extinct for a period. The temples were not destroyed by invaders. There's no sign of burning or war. It's more like they were abandoned. Why? Theories include environmental degradation. Maybe they deforested the islands to the point of soil erosion and food collapse or drought, or perhaps plague. There's also a thought that such a costly centralized cult might have overreached. Maybe the society could not sustain the manpower for temple projects and feeding a priestly class, leading to collapse. It remains an open question and part of a broader pattern seen in prehistory, where some megalithic cultures just fade, similar to the builders of Stonehenge etc., though they had successors. Another captivating aspect is the art and artifacts found. Hagar Kim yielded some of the most iconic pieces. One is a carved slab with a pair of opposing spirals. A motif found across many temples, possibly symbolizing eternity or the cycle of life. Spirals often do. Also found were altar-like blocks with pits, possibly for libations or offerings. At Hagar Kim, a cylindrical stone marked with drilled holes is interpreted as a possible star map or calendar, though that's speculative. Many figurines were found. Obese human figures, some clearly female with pronounced hips and thighs, some gender-neutral or androgynous. These figures, often called the fat ladies, even if some might be male or neither, are thought to represent a fertility or mother goddess cult, highlighting the importance of fertility of land, of people, of livestock to these agrarian communities. Some figurines are tiny, perhaps household talismans, while others, like the famous one in the National Museum of Archaeology in Valletta, are quite large and finely detailed, wearing a patterned skirt and resting in repose, the sleeping lady. The presence of these suggests the temples were indeed ritual centers, possibly focused on goddess worship, though without writing, we can't be certain. What science finds difficult to explain fully is how this knowledge emerged on Malta. Malta is an island relatively small, and these temple people didn't have known writing or, as far as we know, advanced mathematics beyond what's needed for alignment. Yet they achieved alignment and construction that implies advanced planning. Some suspect there was a priestly class who conducted observations over generations, passing down knowledge of solstice rising points etc., and an organized social structure to mobilize labor for building. That implies social stratification and stability. The puzzle is that we don't know what these people called themselves, what language they spoke, likely an early pre-Semitic tongue, since later Bronze Age Maltese might have been Semitic or something from Sicily's pre-Indo-European stock. The UNESCO listing for these megalithic temples of Malta emphasizes that they are unique achievements in human history. They were the oldest such complex stone structures until Göbekli Tepe in Turkey was discovered, which is older but a different thing. And Göbekli wasn't a building with roofs like Malta's were. Speaking of roofs, that's another unknown. The ruins today have no roofs. They're open to the sky or now covered by protective modern shelters. But evidence such as remains of corbelling and clues on how high walls could go suggest they were originally roofed. Probably with corbelled stone slabs or timber and brush in smaller spans. Some chambers might have been left open as courtyards. If fully roofed, the interior would have been dark except for torchlight and those planned sunbeams at specific times. A rather dramatic setting for rituals. Another subtle mystery is the acoustics. The shape of the apses in some temples creates interesting acoustic effects. A person speaking or drumming in one apse can be strangely heard in another due to resonance. The hypogeum, an underground temple burial contemporary with these, is famous for an oracle room where sound echoes impressively at certain frequencies. It's been theorized the temple builders understood or at least exploited acoustic resonance, enhancing the ritual atmosphere with sound. Ultimately, Hagar Kim and Najdra provoke awe that such early farmers achieved something so monumental and precise. Science can explain the basic timeline through radiocarbon dating of remains. We know the age. It can reconstruct some techniques, tool marks reveal how stones were dressed, and it can confirm the alignments with modern measurements. But science cannot fully penetrate the spiritual and social life of the people who built these sanctuaries. We can only infer from the artifacts that they probably worshipped a Mother Earth/goddess figure, cared about celestial events, and had communal ceremonies possibly tied to fertility cycles of nature. And then there's the unsolved question of why did it end? After 2500 BCE, it seems Malta might have been sparsely populated until new people, Bronze Age cultures, arrived later. Did the last temple builders leave? Did they die out? Without written records, we're left with climatic and archaeological clues. Soil analyses indicate decreasing fertility and a drying climate at that time, which could have undermined their agrarian base. Perhaps they ended up performing ever more desperate rituals for rain or harvest to no avail. There's a somewhat haunting thought. Might the alignments have failed due to slow changes in Earth's tilt or axial precession? Meaning over centuries the solstice sunrise shifted slightly. It does about 1 degree in 72 years and no longer perfectly illuminated their sacred spot, causing a crisis in their cult. That's speculative but poetic. Today, visitors on the solstices still gather at Najdra at dawn to watch the sun's first rays align with the ancient doorway, experiencing a connection across 5,000 years with those original temple builders. It works, confirming the genius of those unknown architects. The Maltese temples remain one of archaeology's most impressive achievements of prehistory. Often underappreciated globally, they stand in quiet testimony to a lost religion and way of life. As with other sites, science continues to investigate. For example, X-ray fluorescence on temple walls to see if pigments were used. Some evidence suggests the interiors might have been painted in red ochre. If they were vividly painted and full of people, these temples would have been colorful, bustling, sensory-rich environments, not the monochrome empty shells we see now. In summary, Hagar Kim and Najdra encapsulate a scenario where early humans attained surprising sophistication. The alignment of stone and sun here is beyond coincidence, demonstrating intent and knowledge. How exactly they formalized that knowledge into architecture is the lingering fascination. They had no known writing. So the temple itself was likely the mnemonic device, a giant stone calendar encoding their cosmology. We can measure the alignments and say yes, they match solstices. But imagine being the person who first proposed placing the temple in that orientation. What worldview led them there? These are answers lost to time. The temples keep their secrets behind their megalithic walls. We remain in Malta for our next mystery. Moving from these solstice temples to an even older megalithic giant. On the nearby island of Gozo stand the Gantija temples, literally named for giants erected around 3600 BCE. How and why did Malta's ancient people build such colossal goddess temples? And what myths did they inspire? Gantija temples, older than Stonehenge, older than the Great Pyramid, on a hilltop on Gozo, Malta's sister island, stands Gantija, a pair of megalithic temples whose name means giant's tower. And for good reason. The Gantija temples built around 3600 to 3200 BCE contain some of the largest limestone blocks used in any structure of the prehistoric world. Their outer walls are composed of megaliths up to 5.5 meters, 18 feet long. The biggest are estimated to weigh 40 to 50 tons each. Even today, moving a 50-ton rock is a significant engineering task. That a Neolithic community accomplished this with ropes, wooden levers, and sheer manpower is astounding. The temples of Gantija are in fact two conjoined temples sharing a back wall each with the typical Maltese trefoil floor plan of semicircular apses. They are thought to be dedicated to a mother goddess or earth deity given the finds of voluptuous figurines and sacrificial altars on site. The local Gotsitan legend is that a giantess named Sansuna built Gantija in a single night while carrying her baby on one shoulder and hauling the megaliths with the other. Of course, the reality was likely less fanciful, but still incredible. It required a well-organized society with both the will and means to undertake massive construction over years, if not decades. The mystery of Gantija is twofold. How these people managed to build such structures with limited technology and why they went to such lengths. What was the significance of these temples in their culture? Entering Gantija's temple today, one passes through a reconstructed entrance where once stood a monumental doorway. In antiquity, this may have been closed by some form of gate or door, possibly a horizontal blocking stone that could be rolled. Some have hypothesized that the rounded boulders found could be ball bearings for moving heavy objects, maybe even used as door pivots. Once inside, you find yourself in an oval courtyard open to the sky, facing inward curving walls that form the apses. In the larger temple, the southern one, there are 5 apses, 2 pairs along a corridor and a 5th at the end. And the whole structure is about 30 by 20 meters. The interior walls are made of smaller uprights smoothed and sometimes decorated in contrast to the rough cyclopean outer wall. This indicates they cared about aesthetics inside where rituals occurred. Interior megaliths often have a series of small pitted holes drilled in them. A kind of decoration or maybe for attaching wooden screens or cloth. The altars, stone table-like structures, and libation holes found suggest offerings were made. Burnt animal bones and soil layers confirmed that animals were sacrificed or feasted upon in ceremonies. The remains included domestic animals like sheep, goats, possibly cattle, which aligns with ritual feasting or sacrifice to ensure fertility of land and people. The massive outer walls of Gantija really strike any observer. They look almost like natural rock formations at first glance because of their size, but then you see they are deliberately stacked and fitted. Later Maltese temples like Hagar Kim use slightly smaller blocks. Gantija being among the earliest, one gets the sense the builders were experimenting with just how huge they could go. Almost like a challenge or a show of devotion. The largest stones at the base would have required dozens of men to move. How did they do it? Likely they levered the stones out of a quarry using the wedge method to crack them, then placed them on rollers, logs, and pulled with ropes. Perhaps they also used a thin layer of clay or wet sand to reduce friction and muscle power. A fascinating discovery on Gozo were spherical stones that may have been used like ball bearings, placing them in a track to roll heavy objects. A technique also hypothesized for pyramids and elsewhere. We don't know for sure if the Maltese used that method, but it's possible given these stones were found near some temple sites. In any case, coordinating the transport of a 50-ton block, even if only over a few hundred meters, implies strong leadership or communal cooperation and planning. What drove them to assemble such enormous temples? Most likely religion and communal identity. The temples could host hundreds of people at festival times, though not all inside at once. Perhaps congregations gathered in the courtyard or outside as priests conducted rituals in the inner apses. The building of the temple itself might have been a unifying project, bringing together clans from across the island periodically to work and celebrate. Imagine generations working on the same sacred house, each adding stones and expanding it, venerating ancestors who built the foundation. The goddess hypothesis stems from numerous fat figurines found at Gantija. Archaeologists uncovered clay statuettes of large-hipped women or fertility figures and even a massive stone statue torso missing head and limbs of a similarly robust form which could have been a cult statue. The sheer scale of the temples compared to the small population Malta could support suggests that religion held a central, perhaps the central place in their society. These structures were likely the focal point of social life, religion, and even economic exchange. Festivals often coincide with trade and lawgiving in pre-literate societies. Another mystifying aspect, early reports from the 19th century described that Gantija's inner walls had a reddish plaster or paint on them. If true, that means the temple might have been plastered smooth and painted, perhaps with ochre, which is common in ritual contexts. That would make the interior not just stone gray, but possibly a vibrant red space. Red ochre is often associated with blood, life, the womb. Quite fitting if these were goddess temples focusing on life cycles. Unfortunately, exposure and amateur digging in early times lost a lot of context. By the time systematic excavations happened, plaster remains were scant. The naming of Gantija for giants encapsulates the mystery that local people felt. Generations of Gotsitans before archaeology looked at those megaliths and concluded only giants could have placed them. One legend says a giantess ate nothing but broad beans and honey, giving her immense strength. Curiously, broad beans and honey are staples that could reflect ancient diet staples. She built the temple to use as a place of worship. This folklore, while not historically factual, might preserve a cultural memory of some powerful woman or matriarchal figure associated with the temple. The mystery of purpose also persists. While fertility goddess temple is the lead theory, some wonder if these were also used as collective tombs or ossuaries. A hypogeum in Malta definitely was a necropolis as well as a temple. Gantija did not yield obvious tombs, but some human remains might have been placed in or around. Hard to tell due to disturbance. It's possible that certain rituals of life and death were both conducted there in a cyclical worldview. The collapse of the temple culture around 2500 BCE remains one of Maltese archaeology's big puzzles. As mentioned at Gantija, we see that after about 700 years of use, the temple was no longer maintained. Some final use might have involved deliberately blocking doorways or a last feast. But we lack clear evidence. What's apparent is that the succeeding Bronze Age people, Tarxian cemetery culture, 2500 to 1500 BCE, didn't build in the same way. They used rock-cut tombs in smaller villages. It's as if a golden age of temple building ended and a dark age or at least a transformation followed. Did the temple society overexploit the environment? Some studies of pollen and soil suggest deforestation and soil depletion occurred, supporting the idea of environmental stress. Without enough food surplus, big temple projects would cease. Possibly famine or disease cut population down and new groups could have moved in later, less interested in the old temples except as curiosities or sources of stones. Indeed, some temple stones on Malta were likely repurposed in later periods. Modern science has tried to analyze any organic residues on altars or DNA of any bone fragments to glean details of the temple cult. So far, not much published on that, but the animal bones indicate cattle, sheep, pig sacrifices, similar to other Neolithic societies. One surprising find at Maltese temples, not sure specifically at Gantija, was seashells and fish remains indicating marine offerings, too. Not surprising for an island people. Summing up, Gantija's mystery is largely the how and why of an early society achieving monumental architecture so advanced for its time. They had no writing as far as we know. Yet there is a clear design blueprint used across temples implying shared knowledge and instruction that itself suggests some form of complex social communication, maybe oral tradition or a form of drawing plans on the ground. The alignment at Gantija is not as clearly solar as Najdra's. The orientation isn't as directly solstitial, though one apse may align roughly to the solstice sunrise. Some researchers propose the whole cluster of Maltese temples might map certain star constellations or have geodesic relationships, but evidence is tenuous. Without written records, a lot of interpretations lean on educated guesswork combined with comparative anthropology. The giants legend ironically aligns with a global pattern. Humans everywhere confronted megaliths and invoked giants or gods. It speaks to the enduring sense of wonder these places inspire. Even the immediate successors of the temple builders might have lost knowledge and been just as awed. In Malta's case, we have the benefit of archaeology to peel back some layers. We know normal-sized humans, not giants, with presumably stone tools and determination built Gantija and likely did so out of profound spiritual devotion. But many fine details, the language of their prayers, the name of their goddess, the songs they sang at the summer feast are gone forever. Thus, while science can measure those 50-ton blocks and simulate how many people might pull one, maybe 200 people pulling with ropes can move a multi-ton stone slowly. And we can categorize pottery and figurines to understand economy and art. The heart of Gantija's meaning remains elusive. Maybe that's part of its magic. Stand within those prehistoric apses and you feel a connection to something ancient yet familiar. The human quest to leave something behind, to reach for the divine, to gather in communal awe. In that sense, Gantija still fulfills a kind of purpose. It humbles us, reminding us that so long ago, people with far fewer tools achieved something we'd call an engineering marvel today. And they did it not for profit or conquest, but likely for faith and community. From the giant stones of Gantija, our journey across time and continents now shifts gears. We leave the Mediterranean and leap across the world to Southeast Asia, where a very different kind of megalithic marvel rises from a volcanic landscape. Our next destination is Gunung Padang in Indonesia. A comparatively young site, only 1,200 years old, but a gigantic puzzle of its own. A mountain of stone forming a cosmic mandala. Crossing from prehistory to the early medieval period and from the islands of the west to the tropics of the east, we arrive at Borobudur, the world's largest Buddhist temple built of 2 million stones. What mysteries surround this cosmic mountain of a monument? Borobudur rising above the lush jungles and rice fields of central Java. Borobudur is a stone mountain of a monument, an immense Buddhist stupa and temple complex built in the 8th to 9th century CE by the Sailendra dynasty. From a distance, Borobudur looks like a pyramid or a hill. But as you approach, its intricate design emerges. 9 stacked platforms, 6 square levels topped by 3 circular terraces, creating a step pyramid that culminates in a grand central dome. Every surface is adorned with carvings, narratives, and motifs totaling over 2,600 relief panels, and the upper terraces host 72 perforated stone stupas, each containing a Buddha statue peering serenely through the lattice. In all, Borobudur is constructed from an estimated 2 million blocks of andesite stone carved and fitted without mortar. It is the largest single Buddhist structure in the world and a UNESCO World Heritage Site celebrated not only for its scale but for its symbolism. The entire layout is a three-dimensional mandala representing the Buddhist cosmology of levels of enlightenment. The mystery of Borobudur lies in its purpose and construction. Why build such a colossal monument here in a land far from India, the birthplace of Buddhism? And how did ancient Javanese engineers ensure it would stand the test of time on a volcanic plain? Additionally, Borobudur was inexplicably abandoned and hidden for centuries under volcanic ash and jungle growth, only rediscovered in the 19th century. Its story contains elements of wonder, advanced design, spiritual meaning, and the unanswered question of why it was lost to history for so long. The construction of Borobudur around 760 to 830 CE. Dates vary among scholars, would have been an epic feat. First, the site, a small hill originally, was cleared and possibly stabilized. Some evidence suggests the builders created a base foundation around the hill to shape it. Indeed, Borobudur's lowest level was found to have been enlarged and reinforced early in construction, perhaps to prevent collapse. The entire structure is about 115 feet, 35 meters tall, and the base is roughly 403 feet, 123 meters on each side, forming a massive square. Impressively, no cement holds it together. Instead, blocks were cut to interlock like a giant puzzle. This dry-fit method is akin to other Javanese temples and even earlier world monuments, but on a far bigger scale. The designers also incorporated a sophisticated drainage system. Weeping holes and spouts shaped as mythical gargoyles. Makaras channel rainwater out, preventing water buildup inside. Crucial in Java's heavy monsoon climate. This prevented Borobudur from turning into a soggy sponge of stone. The labor required is staggering to imagine. Quarrying 2 million blocks, some sources say around 55,000 cubic meters of stone, which is roughly 2 million cubic feet, often translated to 2 million stones, transporting them to the site, carving hundreds of relief scenes, plus sculpting over 500 Buddha statues. Yes, Borobudur originally had 504 Buddha statues placed throughout niches and stupas. It likely took a workforce of thousands and at least several decades, if not the better part of a century. The Sailendra kings were devout Mahayana Buddhists and extremely powerful in the region, controlling trade routes. They could marshal the resources for this devotion. But why such a monumental expression of piety? One theory is that Borobudur was built to legitimize the dynasty's divine right and also as a pilgrimage center to attract scholars and monks from across Asia, putting Java on the Buddhist map. Borobudur's design is a mandala in stone. That is, it's a geometric plan imbued with spiritual meaning. The base represents the Kamadhatu, the world of desire. The 5 square terraces above represent the Rupadhatu, the world of forms. And the top 3 circular terraces symbolize the Arapadhatu, the formless world. These correspond to stages on the path to enlightenment in Buddhist cosmology. As pilgrims circumambulate the monument clockwise, they ascend physically and metaphorically. The relief panels on the walls of each level depict teachings and tales. The base originally had scenes of cause and effect, karma, though many of these base reliefs were covered by a later encasement, possibly for structural support. The middle levels show episodes from the life of the Buddha and Jataka tales, stories of Buddha's previous lives, as well as illustrations of Mahayana sutras like the Gandavyuha, which describes a pilgrim sadhana's journey. Quite fitting. The upper round terraces have no narrative reliefs signifying the transcendence of form. Instead, they have those bell-like stupas, each encasing a Buddha facing outwards. These Buddhas in the stupas are often referred to as hidden Buddhas. Originally, each perforated stupa had a seated statue, some of which are now missing or damaged. Finally, at the center top was the large main stupa, likely once gilded or at least plastered smooth. Interestingly, the central stupa is empty. Whether it once had a relic or image is unknown. It might symbolize the ineffable void. The entire conception is deeply philosophical. Which is why one mystery is who were the architects and spiritual brains behind it. We have no records naming the architect, in contrast to, say, some European cathedrals or ancient inscriptions in other cultures. It's believed that learned monks or scholars in the royal court guided the iconography and overall design to mirror Buddhist texts. There may have been foreign influence. The Salendra were connected to the Srivijaya kingdom in Sumatra, which was a Buddhist learning center. Some scholars think Borobudur was part of establishing Java as a new center of Buddhism, possibly even competing with or complementing Nalanda in India. Another mysterious element is that Borobudur has no interior chambers. Unlike many temples or churches, it's essentially a solid structure with some internal fill that you experience by walking on it rather than in it. It's more akin to an artificial sacred mountain than a traditional building. There's no obvious sanctum sanctorum with a big idol. The central stupa at top maybe, but it's empty. This is unique and speaks to its likely purpose as a giant reliquary symbolizing the enlightened mind. Some have wondered if relics of the Buddha or famous saints were embedded in the central dome or somewhere. Small relics were found in stupas of nearby smaller temples, but none was recorded at Borobudur's heart. Perhaps any relics were taken when it was abandoned or remain undiscovered. The abandonment of Borobudur is curious. Sometime in the 14th century, likely with the decline of Buddhism and rise of Islam in Java, Borobudur ceased to be maintained. Volcanic eruptions. Java is very volcanic and earthquakes may have damaged it, and it got blanketed by ash and overgrown by jungle. Local villagers knew of a big mountain of many statues, but it receded into lore partially. The British under Sir Thomas Stamford Raffles, governor of Java in 1811 to 1816, heard of it and sent an expedition in 1814. They cleared some vegetation and basically rediscovered it for the world. Imagine unveiling the huge carved reliefs and Buddha heads entwined with roots. A real-life lost temple scenario. This romantic discovery sparked interest, but serious excavation and restoration didn't happen until the early 20th century under Dutch colonial efforts. Thereafter, Borobudur was saved from further decay by large restorations, including a major UNESCO project in the 1970s where it was dismantled piece by piece and reconstructed with modern waterproofing. So, one mystery: why did the Javanese stop using Borobudur? Did volcanic disasters around the 10th century? There was a major eruption of nearby Merapi volcano perhaps make the area untenable? It's known that around the 10th century the political center in Java shifted from Central to East Java, maybe due to natural disasters or economic changes, leaving Borobudur in a less supported region. Then over the next centuries, Islam gradually supplanted Buddhism/Hinduism. In Java, and such sites were not actively cared for. Though there is evidence the structure was at least partially above ground until later, because Muslim rulers even in the 18th century mentioned a mountain with carved figures which they considered idolatrous. So it sort of faded due to cultural shift plus literal covering by nature. From an engineering perspective, Borobudur poses questions like, how did they ensure it wouldn't collapse? Interestingly, early on, they had a problem. After finishing, they added buttressing to the base that covered those karma reliefs, presumably because small collapses or sagging occurred. That fix actually worked. Borobudur stands largely intact. Top central stupa might have been taller originally or had more structure, which possibly fell in quakes. We see some big stones around that might have belonged to a finial. Some statues are headless. Souvenir hunters and looters took heads in the 19th century and reliefs worn, but overall it's robust. Perhaps their interlocking stone system gave it earthquake resilience somewhat. There's a local myth that the monument was built by the supernatural, that it was the work of giants, or that it magically built itself at the command of a divine architect. Given its grandeur, one can see why myths arise. Another folk belief is that a treasure is hidden under the central dome, which led treasure hunters in the past to drill into it, finding nothing. In truth, The real treasure is the knowledge encoded in the reliefs. They are like an extensive visual scripture teaching about Buddhist doctrines and Javanese courtly life of the time. Scholars are still analyzing them. One panel shows what looks like a Borobudur ship, a type of ancient vessel, giving insight into ship technology of the era. Others show musical instruments, dress, flora, and fauna of 9th century Java, a boon for historians. One aesthetic mystery, the face of the Buddhas. Many Buddha statues at Borobudur were left unfinished in the face area, maybe intentionally. Some experts think finishing touches might have been done in stucco and paint, which wore off. There's also the question of what gilding or color the temple had. Traces of pigment suggest parts were painted or gilded. Imagine it in full glory. White or colored plaster walls, golden stupas gleaming at sunrise. It would be even more stunning. From a spiritual perspective, one might ask, did Borobudur serve its purpose? Did pilgrims come? We have sparse records of pilgrims from other places visiting, unlike say Nalanda or Bodh Gaya, which got chronicled by Chinese pilgrims. Possibly some did but didn't write about it. After restoration in modern times, Borobudur has become active again as a pilgrimage site. Every Vesak Buddha's birthday, thousands of Indonesian and international Buddhists gather to perform ritual circumambulation and meditation there, reviving its original function. Science has tackled Borobudur's geology, monitoring stability. It survived quakes, including a big one in 2006 with only minor damage. The volcanic soil under it can amplify tremors, but the restoration anchored it more. They also keep an eye on acid rain and microbes eating the stone. Conservation is an ongoing concern. So Borobudur's main mystery might be phrased as, how did an island kingdom far from the Buddhist heartland manage to create an architectural marvel that encapsulates the entirety of Buddhist doctrine in stone? And why was such an achievement later forgotten? Science and history answer bits. Trade and devotion. Brought Buddhist ideas, wealth and stability under a powerful dynasty provided means. The rest is human creativity and faith pushing boundaries. But one can't help but wonder if there were specific individuals, a mastermind monk or visionary king who conceived this grand idea. Their names lost, they live on through Borobudur itself. To walk Borobudur is often described as a journey in itself. You start at the base among depictions of earthly life's bustle and suffering. As you climb, the scenes elevate in subject. By the time you reach the top circular terraces, there are no more distracting narratives, just serene Buddhas within stupas and open sky. At the very summit, you stand by the big empty dome, perhaps meant to symbolize nirvana beyond representation. Many visitors, religious or not, feel a tranquil reverence up there, gazing at the surrounding volcanoes and green plains, understanding intuitively that the monument was built as a guide for the soul. This intangible quality is something science can't quantify. The subtle effect of design on consciousness. Maybe that's Borobudur's ultimate secret. It's not just a pile of 2 million stones, but a carefully orchestrated experience. The ancient builders likely knew that and intended it. In reviving Borobudur, we have regained not just a historical treasure, but a spiritual beacon whose light was dimmed for centuries under volcanic ash. Now, from the pinnacle of organized religion and empire, we shift to a more enigmatic vestige, a hill in West Java that some claim hides the remains of a 20,000-year-old pyramid. Our next stop is Gunung Padang, a site steeped in controversy, where natural geology and human workmanship mingle, and where some believe lies evidence of a lost civilization far older than any known. Is it Asia's answer to Atlantis or simply a misunderstood megalithic site? Gunung Padang. In the verdant highlands of West Java, Indonesia, stands an unassuming hill called Gunung Padang. At first glance, it looks like any other hill, but climb its slopes and you'll find the ground littered with countless rectangular stone pillars, many stuck upright in the soil or arranged in rough terraces. Locals have long known the site as an ancient ruin. The name Gunung Padang means mountain of light or mountain of enlightenment in Sundanese, and folklore attributes it to the work of King Siliwangi, a semi-legendary ancient king who supposedly built it in one night. Archaeologically, Gunung Padang is recognized as the largest megalithic site in Indonesia, with surface ruins likely dating to around 500 to 2000 BCE, the Indonesian Bronze Iron Age. That alone makes it significant. But in the last decade, It catapulted to global attention with a bold claim that Gunung Padang is not just a hill but a man-made stepped pyramid concealing structures potentially up to 9,000 or even 20,000 years old. If true, that would overturn conventional history, placing a complex human construction in the last ice age. These claims, made by a team of Indonesian researchers led by geologist Dr. Danny Hilman Natawajaja, are hotly debated. Ground-penetrating radar and core drilling at Gunung Padang did reveal anomalies. Columnar rocks arranged in grids deep below and carbon dates from soil or organic materials yielding ages of 10,000 to 20,000 BP. However, critics argue the data is misinterpreted, that the hill is primarily natural, a volcanic neck with natural columnar joints of andesite, and any human activity doesn't date nearly that far back. The mystery of Gunung Padang thus spans two fronts. What exactly is under the hill and why has it ignited such controversy? Let's start with what is agreed. At the summit of Gunung Padang, elevation approximately 885 meters, there are man-made stone arrangements. The hilltop is terraced into at least 5 step terraces descending northwest to southeast, covering about 3 hectares, 7.4 acres. These terraces are paved with or composed of elongated basalt columns, volcanic rocks that naturally form hexagonal cross-section pillars, much like Giant's Causeway in Ireland. The people who inhabited or ritually used Gunung Padang took these columns, likely quarried from nearby or maybe from the site itself, and laid them out horizontally to create terraces and paths, or set them upright like menhirs, standing stones. Some pillars remain standing, forming rows that might have been primitive walls or enclosures on the terraces. The site was first documented by Dutch archaeologists in 1914, who saw it as a megalithic culture site, likely from Indonesia's Neolithic or Bronze Age, thousands of years old, but not extremely ancient. Local traditions treated it as a sacred place. Offerings are sometimes given, and it wasn't inhabited in modern times, mainly visited for ritual or legend. Excavations in the early 2000s found artifacts like pottery shards and stone tools, supporting a usage period around 500 BCE or so, which aligns with known Austronesian megalithic culture in West Java. So far so normal. It's a unique large megalithic site, but within known timelines. Now enter the new research. Around 2011 to 2012, a team undertook geophysical surveys. They found that below the surface megaliths, the soil and rock had certain patterns. Geoelectric profiles and GPR, radar scans, indicated horizontal structures and cavities at various depths 1 to 15 meters deep. They interpreted a network of possibly human-constructed rooms or layers. Sample cores drilled and some carbon dating of organic material like soil, fossilized vegetation, or charcoal bits and pores of rock came back with surprising dates. One near the surface approximately 500 BCE expected. Another a few meters down approximately 5,200 BCE. And one as deep as 15 meters giving approximately 24,000 BP. The lead geologist speculated that Gunung Padang was built in stages. A phase 1 around 500 to 600 C top layer, a phase 2 around 5,000 BCE middle, and perhaps an ultra-ancient phase 3 around 20,000 or more BCE deep core. If true, it would mean a hunter-gatherer culture at the end of the last ice age constructed a massive stone complex millennia before any known civilization. Naturally, this caught media attention and comparisons to Atlantis or advanced lost civilizations. It dovetails with some popular pseudo-historical narratives. Even Indonesia's President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono got intrigued and visited, giving funding for more research. However, the extraordinary claims met with scrutiny. Other geologists and archaeologists pointed out that the andesite columns are natural rock that formed maybe millions of years ago, and weathering and soil processes can fool scans. For instance, the chamber could just be a less dense zone in volcanic breccia or a natural cavity. The carbon dates, they argued, might be from bioturbation, organic bits seeping down cracks, giving false context. Indeed, the key deep date was from soil in a drill core, not an artifact, meaning it doesn't prove humans were there then. Also, mainstream archaeology hasn't found actual human remains or tools at those depths. Some also note the sampling might have gotten older contaminants. The debate got intense. A scientific paper making the 20,000 years claim was actually retracted in 2024 after criticism that the evidence was insufficient to assert a man-made pyramid that old. So what do we have? Possibly Gunung Padang is an ancient hilltop sanctuary used intermittently over thousands of years, perhaps since the early Holocene. The top layers confirm human construction. Beneath, maybe earlier groups modified natural formations slightly. Like maybe a natural column outcrop was used as a foundation by earlier people around 5000 BCE. That's still quite early for Java before any known agriculture there. There's speculation that if Phase 2, approximately 5000 BCE, is real, it might correspond to a pre-agricultural culture of Sundaland, a hypothesized subcontinent when sea levels were lower. But again, hard evidence is scant. Mostly we have those suggestive radiocarbon dates and geophysical anomalies. One concrete discovery was that under the surface columns, they found layers of sand and clay that seem to have been imported to level things. That indicates deliberate human modification of the ground. Also, they found some strange cement-like mixture of 45% iron mineral, 41% silica, and 14% clay in soil. They posited it could be an ancient geopolymer, ancient concrete used to bind stones. If that's true, it's crazy advanced for 5,000 plus years ago. And geologists countered that those are naturally occurring percentages in many clay soils. Politically and culturally, Gunung Padang's age became contentious, proving a 20,000-year-old pyramid would be national pride and a tourist draw. Some skeptics say the evidence was overinterpreted under pressure or wishful thinking. Meanwhile, the site remains fascinating regardless. Those surface ruins speak to a ritual significance. Gunung Padang might have been a regional center for ceremonies, possibly connected to ancestor worship or astronomy. The site is oriented roughly northwest to southeast. One of the terraces has a stone that points to Mount Ged, maybe a sightline. Some have tried to see alignments with solstices, but not clearly documented. At very least, the hill offers commanding views, no doubt part of its sacred aura. Many megalithic cultures chose high places to get closer to sky deities. Local myths add flavor. One legend says the site was built by King Siliwangi as mentioned and that he and his army turned to stone there, an attempt failed. Sunrise came, they petrified, explaining the many stones. Another folk belief, hidden treasure or a golden throne is inside, fueling clandestine digs historically. Also, some elders say it's a place where prayer is light, meaning wish is easily granted, thus mountain of light. People still perform meditation or shamanic rituals there. From a scientific viewpoint, Gunung Padang underscores the difficulty of interpreting buried structures. Nature can produce seemingly geometric patterns. For example, the whole hill's base is likely natural columnar basalt from an ancient volcano. Those columns when weathered and redeposited can look arranged. The team claiming antiquity said they found evidence of continuous man-made stone layers to 15 meters depth. But others think they are misreading natural jointing of rock that deep. Even if Gunung Padang isn't a 20,000-year pyramid, it's possibly the oldest known megalithic site in Southeast Asia. That alone is significant and suggests a rich yet to be fully understood chapter of Indonesian prehistory. It shows cultural continuity, too. Megalithic traditions persisted into modern times among some Indonesian ethnic groups, e.g. Toraja. Gunung Padang might be an ancestral node for those practices. The controversy itself is a part of the mystery. It highlights how new technology like GPR and archaeology can lead to exciting hypotheses, but also how those need careful validation. A cautionary tale. The initial claims were widely publicized, but subsequent peer review brought them down to earth. So to sum up, what lies beneath Gunung Padang? Possibly more terracing and perhaps a buried structure. Maybe an earlier phase platform or tomb. That's plausible. Is it an Ice Age Atlantean pyramid? Probably not. But the jury is still out until thorough open excavations happen. So far, they haven't fully excavated the deeper layers due to debate and perhaps to preserve the site. It remains tantalizing. Mystery aside, imagine being on Gunung Padang at its peak usage. The terrace is filled with people, stones erected as altars or pillars, priests or shamans offering prayers to mountain spirits or star gods, torches flickering among the stone forest with volcanoes silhouetting the horizon. It must have been atmospheric. That feeling persists for visitors today. There's a certain energy at the site enhanced by the dramatic idea that maybe something very ancient is underfoot. In conclusion, Gunung Padang presents a case where scientific investigation into a seemingly humble site opened a Pandora's box of possibilities. It reminds us that much of human history in the remote past is still hidden just below our feet. While extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, still lacking here, the pursuit of those claims drives science forward. Perhaps ongoing research will clarify the picture, either confirming an older-than-thought human construction or settling it as a later monument embellished by nature. Until then, Gunung Padang sits quietly, its stone pillars keeping their secrets as they have for millennia. Whether that's 3,000 years or 13,000 or more, we await the final answer from the ground. For our final journey, we traverse from the hills of Java to the jungles of Cambodia, where another lost world awaited rediscovery. In Angkor Thom, the last great capital of the Khmer Empire, we find colossal faces smiling enigmatically, and an entire hydraulic city swallowed by strangling figs. We'll peer into the royal temple of Phimianakas and roam the overgrown boulevards of Angkor Thom, a city of 1 million people that vanished under the vines. What mysteries linger in this jungle metropolis and its legendary Golden Tower? Phimianakas in Angkor Thom. Deep in the Cambodian jungle, the ruins of Angkor Thom stand as remnants of a once glorious lost city. A metropolis of the Khmer Empire that at its zenith around the 12th to 13th centuries CE may have been home to 1 million people, making it one of the largest cities on Earth in its time. Today, thick roots twist around tumbled stones, and the calls of gibbons echo where royal processions once passed. The site's sheer scale and sophisticated urban planning, including a grid of roads, massive reservoirs, and canals, have earned it the moniker Hydraulic City, as water management was at the core of its design. In the center of Angkor Thom lies the Phimianakas, a temple with a name that means celestial palace. According to legend, this pyramid-shaped temple once had a glittering golden spire, and each night the Khmer king would ascend it to meet a mystical serpent spirit in the form of a woman. This legend of Phimianakas that a 9-headed Naga princess dwelt in its tower and demanded the king's intimacy is one of Angkor's most tantalizing mysteries. It was recorded by a Chinese visitor, Zhou Daguan, in the 13th century. The union, myth says, ensured the prosperity of the kingdom. If the king missed even one night, disaster would strike. While that is myth, it hints at the symbolic and ritual importance of Phimianakas within Angkor Thom's royal enclosure. More broadly, the mysteries of Angkor Thom involve how such an immense city complete with 8-meter-high walls spanning 12 kilometers, monumental gates, the towering Bayon Temple of Faces, and an intricate web of canals could be swallowed by the forest and forgotten until French explorers in the 19th century reintroduced it to the world. How did this highly advanced city with its precise urban grid and water infrastructure meet its end? And what secrets have recent technologies like LiDAR revealed beneath the jungle canopy about the true extent of Angkor's urban sprawl? First, Angkor Thom Great City in Khmer was established by King Jayavarman VII in the late 12th century after the Cham invaders had sacked the previous capital. He rebuilt and extended Angkor into a massive fortified city. At roughly 9 square kilometers, Angkor Thom was enclosed by a square wall and wide moat. The moat and an elaborate network of canals and reservoirs, including the gigantic West Baray just outside, 8 kilometers long, served to channel water from rivers, keeping rice fields irrigated year-round and also managing floods. One mystery long debated is the exact purpose of the largest reservoirs, the East and West Barays. Clearly, they held and distributed water. But did they also have symbolic or religious meaning, being like the Sea of Creation from Hindu cosmology? Possibly both. Inside Angkor Thom's walls were broad avenues, shrines, markets, houses mostly of wood thus vanished, in the epic stone temples like Bayon with its 216 carved stone faces serenely smiling at the very center. The royal palace compound in the northwest of the city houses Phimianakas as its tallest structure. Phimianakas itself is a nearly square-tiered pyramid made of laterite and sandstone about 35 meters at the base and 12 meters high. It has 3 levels, each smaller, creating a shape akin to a stepped ziggurat. It likely had a tower on top where the golden spire was said to be. It was built a bit earlier, maybe 10th century, and absorbed into Jayavarman's city. On each tier, faint carvings remain, and a steep stair leads up on the west and east sides. It's easy to imagine a king climbing up those steep stairs at dusk, disappearing into a small sanctuary on top, ostensibly to meditate or commune with the gods. and thus, the legend could arise that he meets a goddess Naga there. Archaeologically, we don't have direct evidence of the Naga ritual. No inscription spells it out. But Joe Dogwan's report is compelling folklore. In it, he says the king spent the first watch of every night with a woman of serpent race in a golden tower, and only after could he return to his wives. If the Naga didn't show, his days were numbered, indicating the symbiosis of king and land spirit. This myth likely served to reinforce the king's semi-divine status and responsibility. The Greater Angkor Mystery. How was such a huge city supported in the jungle? LiDAR surveys in the last decade have unveiled that the area around Angkor Thom and Angkor Wat, the earlier temple complex south, was densely populated with suburban temples, neighborhood ponds, mounds, house foundations, roadways, a true urban sprawl of at least 1,000 square kilometers when including peripheral areas. Angkor wasn't just temples. It was a living city with possibly over 700,000 to 1 million inhabitants around 1300 CE. Some estimates vary, but clearly one of largest pre-industrial. Their water management was extremely sophisticated. A combination of natural rivers Siam Reap River and man-made channels directed water into barays and moats during monsoon, stored it then distributed via canals and spillways to rice paddies in dry months. This gave them multiple harvests per year, the basis of Angkor's wealth. One mystery solved by LiDAR. Archaeologists long wondered how the city was structured beyond the main monuments. The thick jungle hampered ground survey, but airborne laser scanning peeled away vegetation digitally, revealing the ghost grid of roads and city blocks and undocumented temples. They found that downtown Angkor Thom was formerly planned blocks about 100 meters by 100 meters with ponds and likely homes. The populace lived here up to at least the 15th century. So Angkor wasn't lost in the classical sense. It likely gradually depopulated after the Thai invasions and due to perhaps water system failures. By the time French explorers like Henri Mouhot arrived in the 1860s, local Khmer and monks still knew of the temples. They were never truly unknown to locals, but the city's scale had been forgotten. The French were astonished. A city of stone monuments being eaten by the jungle, akin to something out of myth. Why did Angkor collapse? That is an ongoing investigation. Climate data like tree rings and sediment suggest severe droughts in the 14th to 15th century punctuated by intense floods. The intricate canal system might have been strained by drought and then damaged by floods. One theory says the network clogged and broke, ruining agriculture. Combined with foreign pressure, Ayutthaya kingdom attacks and internal strife, the capital was moved south, Phnom Penh area, leaving Angkor to decay. The population might have migrated gradually. Without upkeep, the jungle swiftly reclaimed wooden structures. Only stone temples remained, often intentionally left to the elements, as kings took their sacred statues with them when relocating. Phimianaka's golden tower likely was gilded with gold leaf or had a gold statue. It's gone now. Did something valuable lie inside? If the Naga legend holds a kernel of truth, maybe a sacred linga or an idol was in that sanctuary representing the deity consort of the king. Perhaps a form of Shiva or a local mountain spirit. We have not found any such artifact in situ. Perhaps the absence of extraordinary finds like stashes of treasure is due to historical looting or removal when abandoned. Many Angkor temples were systematically cleared of icons when the city fell, some relocated to new centers. Another intriguing find in Angkor Thom. An inscription on a stone tower tells of daily life, listing staff of the palace, including the remarkable detail of dancers, firekeepers, rice cooks, even a royal astrologer, painting a picture of a bustling palace. And indeed, Angkor had an advanced bureaucracy and artistry. They built not just canals, but also highways connecting to distant provinces with stone bridges, some still standing. One can find giant stone faces at each city gate. The gates have 4 faces like Bayon's towers and causeways lined with statues of gods and demons. The famous churning of the ocean of milk depiction. This grand entrance symbolism. These also have a mystery. Many statues are headless now. Heads taken in war or by looters. The causeway imagery was a spiritual safeguard for the city. Angkor Thom's central temple Bayon itself is full of mysteries. For instance, the identity of the faces, likely Jayavarman VII's idealized form, fused with Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva of compassion. The meaning of its maze-like design and hidden chambers, still studied. It even had a cryptic well chamber, possibly for rituals. Modern tech has demystified some. In 2013, LiDAR not only mapped Angkor Thom's precise layout, but also discovered a previously unknown adjacent city, Mahendraparvata on Kulan Hills. An earlier Angkor prototype planned in the 8th to 9th century. This shows Angkor's urban planning roots ran deeper. While Angkor is now thoroughly on tourist itineraries, its sheer size means parts are still not fully excavated. Who knows what small mysteries remain? A hidden inscription in a collapsed shrine or clues to how commoners lived. Their wooden houses left only post holes. Also a missing temple. The royal palace had a temple of the royal linga phallus symbol of Shiva which is mentioned in texts but not definitively found. Possibly it was Phimyanaka's or near it. In mythic Ora Angkor is Cambodia's national pride now. But for a long time Cambodians themselves had lost connection. Folktales in the 1800s talked of a city built by heavenly beings where the legendary leper king cursed by gods. Reality is human hands did it, though their organization and artistry seemed superhuman. Angkor Thom's reclaiming by nature was so thorough that early explorers like Muhat couldn't fathom how such advanced monuments were created by Asians, a bias of the time. He speculated they were built by a lost Western or Indian civilization. We know now it was Khmer ingenuity, but it underscores how surprising it was to the outside world that such a city was lost. Finally, consider how complete Angkor's urban blueprint was. It had hospitals, rest houses along roads. Jayavarman built 121 around his empire. It was like a miniature cosmos. Temples for gods, palace for king, city for people, and water networks like arteries. The mystery perhaps is how knowledge of maintaining that cosmos was lost. Possibly with the decline of the temple priests and engineers when Buddhism shifted to Theravada, less state cult, more local, the grand project ceased. So is Angkor's fall a story of religious transformation too? The state cult of deified kings faded. So maybe they felt less need to maintain huge temples. The hydraulic city concept was first hypothesized by archaeologist Bernard Philippe Grosselier in the 1970s. It was debated, but now LiDAR confirmed Angkor was indeed a low-density megacity reliant on hydrology. Yet ironically, the water that sustained it also may have contributed to its downfall when climate shifted. There's a haunting poetry in that. The success of Angkor's engineering perhaps made it less resilient to extreme change. They optimized for regular patterns. When those broke, system was too rigid. In sum, Angkor Thom and Phimyanaka's evoke the mystery of human endeavors, both grand and ephemeral. A king spent nights with a mythical serpent to safeguard his city. Symbolic perhaps of balancing earthly rule with divine favor. And the city's ruins now are nature's domain, reminding us even the mightiest urban marvel can vanish and be forgotten. Thanks to modern science, we're unforgetting Angkor, mapping it, analyzing pollen and sediment for clues, scanning archives for inscriptions. Many mysteries have been or are being solved, like LiDAR revealing the city's full extent, but others remain to tantalize. The personal stories of its inhabitants, the daily rhythms of an Angkorian, the exact chain of events in its collapse. What's left is the incredible site itself. Enormous stone faces watching silently over a once vibrant city. Tree roots consuming temples like Ta Prohm. Causeways that now go nowhere in the forest. Unlike a legend of Atlantis, Angkor's bones are visible, letting us decipher a lot. The real mystery may be a contemplative one. The rise and fall of civilizations. Angkor's ruins beg the question, how can something so advanced fall so completely? And in that question, we perhaps see a mirror to all complex societies. That philosophical mystery lingers as you stand atop Phimyanaka's at sunset. You can climb it carefully even today and imagine the golden tower glinting, awaiting the king and his serpent bride to consummate the union of heaven and earth for another night. Staving off the darkness for the kingdom below.